Have you ever wondered why NASCAR feels so much different from what it used to? One of the reasons is all of the nostalgia we hold on to. So I found 30 things about NASCAR that will unlock extremely deep memories. Multiple things in this video will hit you with a wave of nostalgia, especially number 7. Throwing your helmet at a competitor is one of the most unique ways to get back at a driver. This action was relatively common in the 2000s, but it seemingly stopped happening out of nowhere. Robbie Gordon and Dale Jarrett had iconic throws, but after Tony Stewart pulled the move in 2012, it didn't happen for a long time. Until Austin Dillon yeeted his helmet at the ground and missed his target in Tyler Reddick. But it was kind of cool for him to bring this back. Who remembers when NASCAR used to begin their races at 1 p.m.? Well, NASCAR fans have actually been begging for this to happen once again. So most races nowadays start at around 3 p.m. Eastern, which is about 2 hours later, and something I noticed is that NASCAR used to look much more vibrant, especially when I began watching around 2009. I thought this was because of the paint schemes, but my theory is actually that it's because of the time in which the races start. You know those posts on the internet that say everything felt brighter when you were a kid? Maybe this is part of the reason why. The boxes of 1/24 scale diecast used to be easily identifiable as everyone had their own unique design. But somewhere along the way, these changed to mostly gray boxes, or even all boxes appearing the exact same at a glance. New diecast boxes are extremely boring and fans should be begging Lionel Racing to go back. And since we're on the topic of boxes, cereal boxes used to be iconic many years ago, and NASCAR would actually appear on them every once in a while. And looking back on these now, the drivers and the art on the fronts of these scream that they're from a classic era. The most recent instance of this that I can actually recall is when Austin Dillon appeared on the Cheerios box nearly 10 years ago. Something as simple as the way NASCAR used to sound has become incredibly nostalgic. The sound of NASCAR engines at Daytona in the 90s and 2000s is incomparable to 2023.
Go to foxsports.com and you'll be entered to win.
And cool hat around backwards, got the beard and everything. But
aside from the drivers, paint schemes were the most iconic part of NASCAR racing in the 90s. This car, and even this car. Schemes used to be very recognizable, and it felt like a time where drivers were way more likely to hold the same exact sponsor for multiple seasons in a row. It's possible that at some point in your life you might have filmed one of your trips to a NASCAR race with a camcorder, but what if you brought one to a race in 2022? That's exactly what this person did, and despite all of the modern paint schemes they captured, it still looks exactly like it used to, which fans found very cool and nostalgic. As the internet grew, more and more people visited the site NASCAR.com, but not everyone got to see what it looked like at some of its earliest stages. Here is an archived screenshot of what the site looked like way back in 2001, this is what it looked like in 2005, and here is a snapshot of it in 2010. Chris Myers is a NASCAR personality with a very iconic voice, and in the late 2000s, he would return from commercial breaks by reading off the sponsors.
Fox Sports, glad to have you along with us from the Daytona 500. This is a Visa race break.
And sometimes he would deliver the broadcast introduction.
17 states represented today in this race with drivers from California and Missouri, 6 different drivers from each of those states.
This short segment within races is extremely memorable. I was thrilled to see him start to announce NFL games. Have you ever just been watching a movie when a NASCAR driver unexpectedly stumbles onto the screen? In a 2003 film produced by Warner Brothers, Jeff Gordon cameoed in Looney Tunes Back in Action. At the time, Gordon was a household name in the prime of his career. His scheme in this movie would be sure to fill anyone with nostalgia. Historically, the 4th of July in America meant that NASCAR was headed down to Daytona Beach for the Firecracker or Coke Zero 400. Although so many memorable moments happened in this annual race, NASCAR changed what once felt like the peak of summer, and they gave this weekend to Atlanta Motor Speedway, which I'll admit, it doesn't quite hit the same. Giving this weekend back to Daytona would just feel like the right thing to do. So apparently we all had this same exact carpet at some point in our lives. It's so relatable that it commonly makes its way onto nostalgia social media pages, and anyone who had 1/64 scale NASCAR diecast laying around definitely created their own speedway within these roads and had many races on it. If you didn't, I'm really sorry. There's a good chance you may have forgotten about Toyota's NASCAR Sponsifier. This was a widely loved campaign by NASCAR fans and originally served as a way to design your very own, usually non-serious NASCAR paint scheme. These were some of the best NASCAR commercials from 2010 to 2012. So good that they brought this campaign back in 2022. Many fans were under the impression that their designs could be in an actual NASCAR race, but most of them just ended up as show cars. And you may think this will never come back again, But what if there was a way you could still design a NASCAR paint scheme? It turns out that you actually can, because I teamed up with DriveSmart for this video, and they're holding a contest just like Sponsify. But one of you guys will actually see your paint scheme race in real life by Kyle Weatherman in the Xfinity Series. To get started, grab the template at the top of the description and carefully read these contest rules, then design your car and upload it to tradingpaints.com before the contest ends on August 14th. A panel of myself, Real Radman, DJ Yej, and Kyle Weatherman will be judging your paint schemes, and we'll be selecting the best ones to become finalists. And what if you win? Aside from seeing your amazing design come to life, you and a friend will be flown out to Texas, accommodated with a hotel, and receive pit passes to see your car go Xfinity Series racing. Thank you, DriveSmart, for letting me share this unique opportunity. Are you old enough to remember NASCAR browser games? Specifically Nasty Car Racing and 5 Miles to Go. If you've ever played them, chances are you completely forgot about these. And both of these games are actually still playable in the year 2023. For me, NASCAR was the better of the two, and it's so old that I have a private video on my channel where I played it. But I was a squeaker back then, and for that reason I just can't play this clip with audio. It seemed like there used to be a lot more NASCAR themed commercials than what there are now, and a handful of them were iconic and would play on every single race day. Here's a peek at some of the classics you may not remember.
I'm at the wrong track.
The Phantom strikes back. Gillette Fusion Power Phantom.
There used to be entire restaurants dedicated to NASCAR, and they were called the NASCAR Cafe. There's an abandoned one in Tennessee that still has all of the decor inside. Most of these were believed to have closed around 2006, but the last one left was in Las Vegas, which closed in 2011. Unfortunately, I never went to one of these, but let me know if you did down in the comments. Speed Channel ended and became Fox Sports 1 way back in 2013, but one thing fans really enjoyed was their theme song. Mike Joy delivered the announcement of Speed Channel's final moments, which is nostalgic and sad at the same time.
It's time to switch off the ignition and turn in the keys. This is the end of Speed in America.
Since we're already on the topic of channel themes, longtime NASCAR viewers always enjoyed the CBS theme. You can see how nostalgic this would be. This song gets a 10 out of 10. NASCAR on Fox used to have an official mascot. It was a gopher that they named Digger, and they incorporated him in unique ways such as putting his graphic up on screen during big crashes. This could be nostalgic to some, but it's believed that most NASCAR fans actually despised him. Some high-ranking NASCAR personnel actually suspected that this character was solely responsible for declining ratings. They started phasing him out in 2010, and 2012 was the last time he'd ever be associated with NASCAR. NASCAR videos on YouTube have come a long way since YouTube first began. Way back around 15 years ago, most videos uploaded were actually crash compilations, but another popular theme in the late 2000s and early 2010s were NASCAR stop motions. If you watched these, you may remember the thrill of constantly refreshing your browser in hopes of getting a car. The most popular videos belong to Eric Estep when his channel used to be called Double EDUD. This is how I first heard of Eric way back in 2012. I signed up as Jeff Burton's car and came just inches from winning the Season 2 championship. If you ever collected 1/64 scale NASCAR diecasts, you may recall that Kevin Harvick and Brad Keselowski's cars often came on this strong plastic base so you couldn't roll them around and play with them. But being the little genius I was, I figured out how to take these off just by watching a tutorial on YouTube. I haven't collected these in years, but I wonder if they still do this. Okay, now we're done with the niche stuff. Ken Squire's NASCAR commentary in the 80s and 90s was iconic, and some fans declared him as the best announcer of all time. His most notable call was likely this fight in the first ever televised Daytona 500.
The temper's overflowing. They're angry. They know they have lost. And what a bitter defeat.
The wave of drivers NASCAR gained in the 2000s all raced together when popularity in the sport peaked. Most of the legends retired in 2015 to 2022, which had fans scrambling to find a new favorite driver. This actually doesn't seem like very long ago, but watching their final races is starting to get that nostalgic feel. There may be no better feeling than anticipating Daytona Speed Weeks for 3 months straight. When this intro hit, you knew a whole season of NASCAR racing was about to get kicked off.
A special day, the golden anniversary anniversary of the Daytona 500. This is the Great American Race.
It's one of the great scenes in all of sports. It's America's greatest race.
NASCAR's most beloved console game was NASCAR Thunder 2004. It included so many features that are missing in NASCAR games today, if we're lucky enough to get one at all. 20 years later, it still stands the test of time, just like NR 2003. I watch old NASCAR races from time to time, and I found a really old segment where the broadcast asks you to pull out your cell phone and text a word to a certain number to initiate your participation in a poll. I find this nostalgic because although it was only 15 years ago, it's such an outdated form of technology, and we will never see something like this again. Another piece of old technology would be old photo cameras that fans brought to the track in the 2000s. I'm going to show you the opening to the 2008 Bank of America 500, and I want you to look into the grandstands. These camera flashes sprinkled throughout the crowd gave some extra life and energy. The movie Cars paid extra close attention to this small detail and created some quality scenes with the same look. But given that everyone has touchscreen phones now, this special look and feel will only get lost in time forever. Race fans commonly say that their favorite announcer booth of all time was the trio of Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, and DW. They always worked very well off of each other and gave us iconic calls like this one.
You didn't see that except for the All-Star race. Newman all the way up against the wall. There's still three. He's got him. He's got him. Oh, there we go.
The movie Talladega Nights is starting to become nostalgic, especially this deleted scene where Ricky Bobby is talking to Greg Biffle and Dale Earnhardt Jr. before he joined Hendrick Motorsports. And finally, for number one, I wanted to predict something about NASCAR that will become nostalgic in 20 years from now. I believe fans will look back on NASCAR racing before the next-gen era and get hit by a wave of nostalgia by hearing the sound of a 5 lug nut pit stop. This was perhaps the sport's most iconic sound. But since implementing the next-gen race car, pit stops now sound entirely different. So what are the things that make you feel the most nostalgic about NASCAR? Let everyone know in the comments below. If you liked this video, you'll want to watch this one I did on 10 minutes of useless NASCAR information.